There are moments in life when something shifts inside you. Sometimes it happens quietly, sometimes it happens suddenly, sometimes it comes from a single sentence, a single story, or a single realization that opens your eyes. Today, I want to share a story like that, a story that can change how you think, how you live, and how you learn English. But before the story begins, ask yourself something. Are you living your life or are you simply moving through it? Do you wake up with purpose or do you wake up with pressure? Do you feel like you're growing or do you feel like you're repeating the same day over and over again? These questions matter. They matter because most people move through life half awake. They survive, but they don't grow. They repeat, but they don't rise. They want more, but they don't know how to reach it. And sometimes the only thing standing between the life you have and the life you want is a story that wakes you up. This is the story of a young man named Daniel. Daniel was not lost, but he wasn't found. He was not broken, but he wasn't whole. He was not hopeless, but he was tired, tired of trying, tired of failing, tired of feeling like nothing was changing. Daniel wanted to improve his English. He wanted a better job. He wanted confidence. He wanted a new beginning. But every day felt the same. Every plan he made faded after a few days. Every dream he had felt too far away. And the more he tried, the more he doubted himself. One evening, after another long, frustrating day, Daniel sat alone in his small room. He opened his notebook, the same notebook he had used for months. The first pages were full of English vocabulary, sentences, and goals, but the last pages were empty, blank, untouched. It felt like a mirror of his life, full of beginnings, empty of endings. He whispered to himself, "Why do I keep failing? Why can't I change?" And that was when the story began. On his desk was a book he never finished, a book a mentor had given him months ago, a book about life, purpose, and change. Daniel opened it randomly, and his eyes fell on one line that shook him. Your life changes the moment your mind changes. It didn't look like an important sentence, but something about it made him stop breathing for a moment. He read it again, and again, and again, and suddenly it hit him. He didn't need a new plan. He didn't need a new teacher. He didn't need a new country. He needed a new mind, a new way of seeing his life, a new way of seeing his English journey, a new way of seeing himself. This realization was the beginning of everything. Daniel decided that instead of focusing on goals that were too big, too far, too heavy, he would focus on something simple. One small change every day. Not a huge change, not a dramatic change, just a small one. The next morning, Daniel woke up early. For the first time in months, he didn't check his phone. He didn't scroll. He didn't waste the first hour of his day. He sat up, closed his eyes, and asked himself one question. What small change can I make today? He looked at his notebook. He opened a new page. He wrote one sentence in English about how he felt. Just one sentence. And that was enough. The next day he wrote 2 sentences. The next day he wrote 3. On the 4th day he recorded his voice repeating those sentences. On the 5th day he tried to speak for 1 full minute. On the 6th day he listened to an English story and repeated it out loud. On the 7th day he reviewed everything he had learned. 7 days, 7 small steps, 7 small changes, 1 growing mind. And for the first time in his life, Daniel didn't quit. Because he wasn't trying to change everything. He was trying to change something. This is where your English learning begins too. Not with perfection, but with practice. Not with pressure, but with small actions. Not with fear, but with courage. Now let me show you something important. Every time Daniel made a small change, something bigger changed inside him. He started believing in himself. He started trusting his process. He started feeling capable. And this is the secret of all transformation. Confidence comes from consistency. Growth comes from repetition. Change comes from action. Most learners think English requires talent. Daniel discovered English requires habits. Most learners think English requires memory. Daniel discovered English requires repetition. Most learners think English requires a teacher. Daniel discovered English requires commitment. So, how do you practice English like Daniel? It starts with simple methods you can do anywhere. Speak 1 minute a day. Write one short paragraph. Listen to one English story. Repeat one sentence with emotion. Record your voice. Review your mistakes. Celebrate small progress. When you do this daily, your mind begins to shift. Your brain rewires itself. Your fear decreases. Your confidence increases. Your English becomes natural, not forced. And your life begins to change. Quietly, slowly, beautifully. This segment is not just a story, it is an invitation. An invitation to remember that small changes lead to big transformations. An invitation to believe that you are capable. An invitation to finally start. And as Daniel discovered, the first step is not about English. The first step is about you, your mindset, your belief, your decision to stop waiting and start becoming. In the next segment, you will go deeper. You will learn the exact method Daniel used to improve his English and his life. But for now, remember this. Your life changes the moment your mind changes, and your mind changes the moment you take your first small step. Segment 2. The method that wakes your mind. Change does not begin with a dramatic moment. Change begins quietly in a place inside you that decides, enough, I will not live the same way anymore. Daniel felt that shift on the night he read the sentence in the old book. But what he did next was even more important. He created a method, not a complicated one, not a long one, not a perfect one. A simple method that activated his mind, strengthened his memory, and trained his English every single day. This method is the heart of today's segment. This is the system that can change your life too. Before we dive into steps, you must understand one truth about learning. The brain does not respond to pressure. The brain responds to repetition. Most English learners study with fear. They study with frustration. They study with the thought, I must remember everything. But the brain does not grow through force. It grows through rhythm, small repeated actions that become part of your identity. Daniel realized this early. He understood that learning English was not only about vocabulary or grammar, it was about training his mind to think, feel, and respond differently. English was not only a language, it was a tool that could open doors, create confidence, and shape the person he wanted to become. So he built a method around three principles: small steps, daily rhythm, active engagement. Let's go inside each principle and watch how Daniel applied it. The first principle was simple. Small steps are stronger than big promises. In the past, Daniel had made huge plans. He would say, tomorrow I will study for 2 hours. Next week I will start speaking English fluently. This month I will memorize 500 words. But every time the plan was too heavy, too unrealistic, too big for his lifestyle. And big plans break easily. Small steps do not break. Small steps do not scare you. Small steps create consistency. Daniel started with something so small it almost felt ridiculous. He promised to spend 5 minutes a day on English. Not an hour, not half an hour, just 5 minutes. 5 minutes he could never avoid. 5 minutes he could never complain about. 5 minutes that his brain accepted without fear. He wrote 1 sentence a day. He read 1 paragraph a day. He spoke 1 minute a day. He listened to 1 short clip a day. He reviewed 1 idea a day. 5 minutes. That was his beginning. The second principle of the method was daily rhythm. Daniel understood something important. The brain loves patterns. When something becomes a pattern, the brain holds on to it. It becomes automatic, natural, effortless. For years, Daniel had studied English randomly. Some days he studied a lot, some days not at all. Some days he was motivated. Some days he avoided everything. His progress rose and fell like waves. Nothing stayed, nothing built, nothing grew. So he created a rhythm, a simple morning ritual. Every day, the moment he woke up, before touching his phone, before checking messages, before thinking about the world, he opened his notebook and wrote one small thing. A thought, a feeling, a memory, a goal, a simple sentence. The moment he wrote it, his brain received a message. English matters, learning matters, growth matters. It was not about perfection, it was about priority. This morning rhythm slowly changed the shape of Daniel's days. His brain became sharper in the morning, his thinking became clearer, his attention improved, and day by day his English followed the rhythm. The third principle was active engagement. This is the most important part of the method. This is the part most learners ignore. Many English learners study passively. They watch videos but do not speak. They read texts but do not repeat. They listen to conversations but do not respond. They memorize vocabulary but never use it. Passive learning creates passive results. Active learning creates transformation. Daniel made one decision that accelerated his progress more than anything else. He spoke out loud every time he learned something. If he watched a video, he repeated it. If he read a sentence, he said it aloud. If he learned a new word, he put it into a sentence immediately. If he listened to a story, he summarized it in his own words. Your brain remembers what your mouth practices. Let me show you exactly how Daniel practiced each day. In the morning, he wrote one simple thought in English. Then he read it aloud. This activated both memory and confidence. Then he spent 2 minutes listening to an English clip on his phone. Something short, simple, and clear. He repeated one sentence from that clip, not perfectly but with effort. The morning was done. In the afternoon, when he felt tired or bored, he spent another minute thinking in English. Just one moment of reflection. Something like, "What did I do today?" Or, "How am I feeling right now?" That was enough to keep his brain connected. In the evening, he did a final review. He read his morning sentence again. He repeated the sentence from the clip. He listened to one more minute of English, and then he closed the day. This rhythm was tiny, almost invisible, but the results were not. Within 1 week, Daniel could speak better. Within 2 weeks, he felt more confident. Within 1 month, he noticed real progress. Within 2 months, English became part of him. Within 3 months, his entire life changed. Not because he studied harder, not because he studied longer, but because he studied consistently. Now let's break down the exact daily method for you. This is the method you can begin today. This is the method that can change your life too. Morning, 3 minutes. Write one sentence about your mood, your plan, or your thoughts. Read it aloud. Listen to one short English clip. Repeat one sentence from it. Afternoon, 2 minutes. Think in English for 1 minute. Describe your day in one short sentence. Evening, 3 minutes. Review your morning sentence. Repeat the sentence from the clip. Listen to one more short audio. You do not need more than this. You do not need complicated lessons. You do not need heavy study sessions. You need rhythm. You need repetition. You need simplicity. Daniel's transformation did not happen because he worked harder. It happened because he worked smarter. He learned one truth that every English learner must accept. Change does not require time. Change requires intention. And when you practice English with intention every day, even for a few minutes, your mind begins to shift. Your memory becomes sharper. Your confidence grows stronger. Your fear becomes weaker, and your English becomes easier. In the next segment, you will discover the part of Daniel's journey that unlocked his fluency even faster: storytelling. You'll learn how stories train your brain, improve your recall, and help you speak naturally. Your transformation is just beginning. Segment 3: The story that trains your English mind. There is a reason the human mind remembers stories more easily than rules, lessons, or words. Stories carry emotion, emotion carries memory, and memory carries language. This is why babies learn language through stories long before they learn grammar. This is why you remember movies, conversations, and experiences better than textbooks. And this is the part of Daniel's journey that changed everything for him. When Daniel first started his small daily method, he felt progress, but still struggled with one thing. He could understand English sentences, but he could not use them naturally. He could repeat phrases from videos, but they didn't feel like his own. He knew vocabulary, but he often forgot it in real situations. It was as if English lived outside him, not inside him. Then something happened that shifted his understanding completely. One evening, Daniel was sitting in a quiet cafe. He was tired after work, but he wanted to continue his daily practice. He opened his phone and found a short English story, simple, slow, easy to follow. He pressed play. The narrator's voice filled the cafe. Daniel listened carefully, but something felt different this time. The story wasn't just information, it was an experience. The story was about a young woman walking through a forest, thinking about her life, remembering her past, and imagining her future. There was emotion in her voice, rhythm in the sentences, and images in every phrase. Daniel felt as if he could see the forest, hear the leaves, feel the wind, and without thinking, he began to repeat the sentences out loud, quietly, softly, almost like whispering. But this time something clicked. He wasn't just repeating English, he was living it. He wasn't just listening, he was experiencing it. He wasn't just remembering words, he was feeling them. When he finished the story, he noticed something strange. The sentences stayed in his mind effortlessly. The vocabulary did not fade, the rhythm did not disappear, the images stayed behind his eyes, and for the first time he felt English sticking to him, becoming part of his thoughts. Daniel realized that night that stories were not just entertainment. Stories were memory machines. The next day, he tested a new method. He listened to a story again, but this time he broke it into 3 steps. 1. Listen. 2. Speak. 3. Summarize. He listened to the story once without pressure. He spoke the important sentences aloud. He summarized the whole story in simple English. And something remarkable happened. When he summarized, his brain searched for vocabulary. His mouth tried to form natural sentences. His memory tried to recall details. His confidence pushed him to continue. This one practice activated everything at the same time. Listening, speaking, thinking, remembering, feeling. This was the first time Daniel understood what true English practice feels like. It was not mechanical, it was not forced, it was alive. And day by day, story by story, he improved faster than ever before. Let's look at why stories work so powerfully. The brain is built for images. When you hear a sentence like, "She walked through the forest," your brain does not see the words. It sees the forest. It sees trees, sunlight, shadows. When you hear, "He felt lost," your brain does not see letters. It sees emotions. The connection between language and imagery creates stronger memory. Stories also carry rhythm. Every good story has a flow. Short sentences, long sentences, pauses, emphasis. When you repeat these patterns, your speaking becomes natural. You learn English the way you learned your first language, through rhythm, not rules. Stories activate emotion. Emotion activates memory. Memory activates fluency. Let me show you how storytelling practice works for English learners like you. Imagine a short story about a man trying to rebuild his life after losing everything. The man searches for meaning, fights through difficulty, finds strength in pain, and discovers hope. When you listen to such a story, your mind connects to the character. You feel what he feels. You see what he sees. And without realizing it, your brain locks onto the English phrases that carry emotion. Now imagine you repeat the story in your own words. Suddenly you're not just a learner, you're a storyteller. You're not repeating memorized lines, you're expressing ideas. You're not studying English, you're using English. This is how fluency is born. Daniel continued this routine for weeks. Every day he chose a new story, short, simple, powerful. Sometimes he listened twice, sometimes he repeated aloud, sometimes he tried to retell the story without looking, and slowly something inside him changed. He became braver, he became more expressive, he became more comfortable with mistakes, he became more connected to English. But the biggest change happened not in his language, but in his mindset. Daniel began to understand something profound. Language is emotion, emotion is memory, memory is fluency. This formula became his guide. He realized that if he didn't feel anything, he didn't remember anything. But when he felt something, even a little, his brain responded. This meant that the key to learning English was not memorizing hundreds of words. It was connecting deeply with a few powerful sentences. The next part of Daniel's journey is something you can start today. He developed a simple practice that made storytelling even more effective. He connected each story to his own life. If the story was about courage, he asked himself, "When was I courageous?" If the story was about sadness, he asked, "When did I feel this way?" If the story was about hope, he asked, "What am I hoping for?" This connection turned English into a mirror of his own experiences, and the moment English became personal, it became unforgettable. Your English learning can transform in the same way. You don't need complicated textbooks. You don't need expensive classes. You don't need perfect pronunciation. You don't need dozens of grammar rules. You need experiences, you need emotion, you need stories. Every time you listen to a story in English, you are building your mind. Every time you repeat a sentence, you are training your voice. Every time you summarize, you are strengthening your memory. Every time you connect the story to your own life, you are building fluency. And that is the essence of segment 3. Stories make English unforgettable. Stories make learning enjoyable. Stories make your mind come alive. In the next segment, we go deeper. You will discover how English becomes automatic, how your brain begins to think in English without effort, without hesitation, without fear. Your journey is just beginning. Segment 4. How English becomes automatic in your mind. There comes a moment in every learner's journey when English stops feeling like a subject and starts feeling like a language, a living language, a flowing language, a language that moves through your mind naturally, without force, without hesitation. This transformation does not happen suddenly, and it does not happen magically. It happens quietly, deep inside the brain, when repeated patterns, emotional connections, and active practice form a new mental pathway. This is the moment Daniel began to experience. He didn't realize it at first. It didn't feel dramatic. It didn't feel like a big victory. It felt like something simple, natural, almost invisible. One morning, while walking to work, Daniel noticed something surprising. His mind was thinking in English, not fully, not perfectly, but enough for him to recognize the shift. He looked at the street, the sky, the people around him, and the thoughts inside his head began forming in simple English sentences. I feel better today. The weather is nice. I need to finish my project. I should buy groceries later. These were small thoughts, but they were powerful. They were proof. Proof that all the daily practice, all the small steps, all the simple methods were slowly working. His brain was beginning to create automatic English pathways. Why did this happen? Because Daniel had been training his mind, not with memorization, not with pressure, but with repeated exposure, emotional storytelling, and personal connection. He wasn't forcing English, he was living with English. And when you live with something long enough, your mind accepts it as part of its identity. This is where the real transformation begins. Your mind becomes bilingual, not when you memorize grammar rules, but when you develop instinct, when English begins to appear in your thoughts without effort. And this happens much earlier than fluency. Thinking in English is not the final stage. Thinking in English is the beginning of fluency. To understand this transformation, you have to look inside the brain itself. The brain has a structure called the language loop. It connects listening, speaking, thinking, and remembering. Each time you practice English actively, you strengthen that loop. Each time you repeat a sentence out loud, you strengthen that loop. Each time you summarize a story, visualize an image, or connect English to personal experiences, you strengthen that loop. Eventually, the loop becomes strong enough that English rises automatically. Daniel discovered that when he began thinking in English, something else changed too. He became less afraid of speaking. His fear came from overthinking, translating every sentence, checking every grammar structure, worrying about every mistake. But when English thoughts started appearing naturally, he didn't need to translate anymore. His mind became faster, his mouth became braver, his confidence grew. This leads to one of the most important truths in English learning. Fear disappears when English becomes familiar. Daniel's mind was becoming familiar with English, not because he studied harder, but because he created daily contact with the language. English became the music in his head, the rhythm in his thoughts, the shape of his expressions. But Daniel wanted to take this transformation further. He didn't want to think in English only sometimes, he wanted to think in English all the time. So he built a new layer into his daily practice, the inner voice method. The inner voice method is simple but extremely powerful. Here's how it works. Every time a thought appears in your mind, you try to express it in English, even if it's simple, even if it's imperfect, even if it takes a few seconds longer. You don't judge yourself. You don't correct every mistake. You simply translate your own thoughts into English softly, silently, naturally. Daniel practiced this everywhere, walking to the bus stop, waiting in line, cooking dinner, taking a break at work, going to sleep. He wasn't studying English. He was training his inner voice. He was training his instinct. At first it felt slow, then it felt normal, then it felt natural, and after a few weeks his brain began to jump into English automatically. This practice rewired his mind in a way nothing else could, because your inner voice is your true language. But there was one more challenge Daniel faced. Thinking in English is powerful, but maintaining it requires awareness. On days when he felt stressed or tired, his mind slipped back into his native language. On days when he lost motivation, his thoughts became quiet. So he needed another technique, one that would keep English alive even on difficult days. He discovered the EV technique accidentally. It began with a simple habit, describing his surroundings. While sitting in the bus one morning, he quietly described everything he saw. Two people are talking. The woman is reading a book. The traffic is slow today. The sky looks cloudy. He didn't realize it, but he was training observational fluency, the ability to express what you see, feel, and experience in real time. This skill is the bridge between thinking English and speaking English. It improves vocabulary sentence, flow confidence, descriptive ability, speaking speed, brain agility. This practice became part of his daily routine. He didn't force himself to use complicated grammar or advanced vocabulary. He used simple English, clear English, real English. And because he used it daily, it became automatic. There was one more transformation waiting for Daniel, a transformation that surprised him. As his mind became more comfortable with English, he began understanding English naturally, not word by word, but idea by idea. He stopped translating sentences. He stopped focusing on individual words. Instead, he understood the meaning behind the words. This is called intuitive comprehension. You experience it when you watch a video and understand it without reading subtitles. You hear someone speaking and immediately get the idea. You read a paragraph and sense the meaning before breaking the grammar. This skill grows from listening to stories and summarizing. It grows from daily rhythm. It grows from thinking in English. And Daniel's intuitive comprehension grew stronger each week. But the biggest surprise came one afternoon during a work meeting. Someone asked Daniel a question. Normally he would freeze, he would panic, he would search for the right words, but this time something unexpected happened. He took a breath, he opened his mouth, and the sentence came out smoothly, naturally, automatically. He didn't translate, he didn't hesitate, he didn't plan, he simply spoke. That was the moment he realized English wasn't something outside him anymore. English had become part of him. This is the transformation you are working toward. This is the transformation these segments are guiding you through. This is the transformation that begins when you stop studying English and start living with it. In the next segment, we go even deeper into the emotional side of English learning. You will learn how your feelings shape your memory, your confidence, and your fluency far more than rules ever could. Your mind is changing, your English is awakening, your life is shifting. Segment 5. The emotion that unlocks your English memory. There is a secret in language learning that almost nobody talks about. It is not grammar, it is not vocabulary, it is not pronunciation, it is something deeper, something more powerful, something most learners ignore without realizing that they are cutting their progress in half. That secret is emotion. Emotion is the glue of memory. Emotion is the fuel of confidence. Emotion is the spark that makes the brain come alive. And this is the stage of Daniel's journey where everything accelerated, where his English learning stopped feeling like study and started feeling like transformation. It began on a cold evening after a long day at work. Daniel felt tired, frustrated, and mentally drained. His boss had criticized his performance. His co-workers had ignored him. His own mind felt heavy. He sat alone at home, staring at the wall, wondering why life felt so difficult. He knew he had to practice English that evening. His daily rhythm depended on it, but he felt no motivation, no energy, no desire. English felt like one more weight on his chest. He took out his phone but couldn't focus on anything. Everything felt empty. Everything felt meaningless. Until he found an old video, one he had saved months ago but never watched. It was a powerful motivational speech about resilience, pain, pressure, growth. Daniel pressed play without thinking, and something inside him shifted instantly. The speaker didn't talk about grammar. He didn't talk about vocabulary. He talked about life, about failure, about getting up again, about becoming stronger than pain. As Daniel listened, something strange happened. His eyes burned, his heart tightened. He felt something he hadn't felt in months: clarity, hope, energy. And without thinking, he began repeating the speaker's words out loud. Not perfectly, not confidently, but emotionally. For the first time, the English entering his ears was connected to something deeper inside him. The sentences were not just sentences, they were feelings. And feelings stick. Daniel listened again, he repeated again, he felt again, and suddenly it clicked. Emotion makes English unforgettable. This one evening changed everything. Daniel realized that when he connected English to emotion, his learning doubled in speed. He remembered more, he understood more, he spoke more naturally, he felt more confident. And this led him to a new discovery, a discovery that became the fifth pillar of his transformation. If you feel it, you remember it. If you remember it, you can use it. If you can use it, you can speak it. Emotion is not a distraction from English. Emotion is the engine of English. Daniel decided to redesign his entire practice around emotion. When he watched stories, he chose emotional ones, stories of struggle, hope, courage. Used to, when he repeated sentences, he repeated them with feeling, not like a robot. When he wrote in his notebook, he wrote about real emotions, not just neutral topics. When he practiced speaking, he talked about his day honestly, not mechanically. And the results were astonishing. Most learners study with a cold mind, memorizing, memorizing, memorizing. Daniel learned with a warm mind, feeling, connecting, expressing. This difference changed everything. Let's break down why emotion is so powerful for English learners like you. When you learn with emotion, your brain releases chemicals, dopamine and norepinephrine, that strengthen memory. These chemicals act like superglue for information. When you feel strongly, your brain says, "This is important. Keep this." And it stores the information longer, deeper, more permanently. Think about the last time you felt emotional. Maybe a movie made you cry. Maybe a song reminded you of someone. Maybe a moment of fear made your heart race. You still remember it, right? Because emotion made your brain pay attention. Now imagine learning English this way. Imagine every new word being connected to a feeling. Imagine every sentence being connected to a real moment. Imagine every listening practice being connected to a story that moved you. This is how English becomes unforgettable. Daniel began experimenting with emotional triggers in his practice. Here's what he used, and what you can use too. 1. Emotional storytelling. He chose stories about real human experiences: pain, love, courage, loss, growth. The stronger the emotion, the stronger the memory. Chain 2. Emotional repetition. He didn't repeat sentences mechanically. He repeated them like an actor, changing speed, tone, volume, feeling. For example, instead of repeating, "I will not give up" flatly, he repeated it with emotion, slowly, loudly, confidently. 3. Emotional reflection. Every evening, Daniel wrote one emotional sentence in English. "I felt proud today. I felt lost today. I felt scared today. I felt hopeful today." These were not perfect sentences, they were meaningful sentences, and that made them powerful. 4. Emotional connection. He took English sentences and connected them to his own experiences. If he heard a sentence like, "She was afraid to try," he immediately thought of a moment when he felt the same. This made the sentence unforgettable. 5. Emotional listening. He stopped listening to boring lessons. He listened to speeches, interviews, stories, and messages that moved him. The more emotional the content, the more his brain absorbed. Emotion turned every practice session into a transformation session. One day, something incredible happened. Daniel was listening to an English clip about resilience. In the middle of the clip, a sentence hit him so deeply that he had to pause the audio. The sentence was, "Rock bottom is not the end, it is the beginning." He repeated it slowly. He repeated it again. He repeated it a third time. He felt tears fill his eyes. Rock bottom was familiar to him. He had lived there. He had felt it. He had survived it. And hearing it in English gave him a powerful connection, not only to the language, but to himself. That was the moment Daniel finally understood. English is not just about language. English is about identity. English is about emotion. English is about feeling alive. The deeper you connect emotionally, the faster you grow linguistically. At this stage of his journey, Daniel's English began to change in ways he didn't expect. His speaking became more expressive. His sentences carried emotion, not just structure. His vocabulary choices improved naturally. His memory sharpened. He no longer sounded like a learner. He sounded like someone who lived in English, because emotionally he did. This is the transformation waiting for you too. If you learn English with emotion, you will never struggle with memory again. You will never feel stuck. You will never feel slow. You will feel connected. You will feel alive. And you will remember effortlessly. In the next segment, we go to the next level: how emotional English helps you build true confidence. the kind that stays with you everywhere, in conversations, in work, in interviews, and in life. Your English journey is becoming more powerful than you think. There is a secret in language learning that almost nobody talks about. It is not grammar, it is not vocabulary, it is not pronunciation, it is something deeper, something more powerful, something most learners ignore without realizing that they are cutting their progress in half. That secret is emotion. Emotion is the glue of memory. Emotion is the fuel of confidence. Emotion is the spark that makes the brain come alive. And this is the stage of Daniel's journey where everything accelerated, where his English learning stopped feeling like study and started feeling like transformation. It began on a cold evening after a long day at work. Daniel felt tired, frustrated, and mentally drained. His boss had criticized his performance. His co-workers had ignored him. His own mind felt heavy. He sat alone at home, staring at the wall, wondering why life felt so difficult. He knew he had to practice English that evening. His daily rhythm depended on it, but he felt no motivation, no energy, no desire. English felt like one more weight on his chest. He took out his phone but couldn't focus on anything. Everything felt empty. Everything felt meaningless. Until he found an old video, one he had saved months ago but never watched. It was a powerful motivational speech about resilience, pain, pressure, growth. Daniel pressed play without thinking, and something inside him shifted instantly. The speaker didn't talk about grammar, he didn't talk about vocabulary, he talked about life, about failure, about getting up again, about becoming stronger than pain. As Daniel listened, something strange happened. His eyes burned, his heart tightened. He felt something he hadn't felt in months: clarity, hope, energy. And without thinking, he began repeating the speaker's words out loud, not perfectly, not confidently, but emotionally. For the first time, the English entering his ears was connected to something deeper inside him. The sentences were not just sentences, they were feelings, and feelings stick. Daniel listened again, he repeated again, he felt again, and suddenly it clicked. Emotion makes English unforgettable. This one evening changed everything. Daniel realized that when he connected English to emotion, his learning doubled in speed. He remembered more, he understood more, he spoke more naturally, he felt more confident, and this led him to a new discovery, a discovery that became the fifth pillar of his transformation. If you feel it, you remember it. If you remember it, you can use it. If you can use it, you can speak it. Emotion is not a distraction from English. Emotion is the engine of English. Daniel decided to redesign his entire practice around emotion. When he watched stories, he chose emotional ones, stories of struggle, hope, courage. When he repeated sentences, he repeated them with feeling, not like a robot. When he wrote in his notebook, he wrote about real emotions, not just neutral topics. When he practiced speaking, he talked about his day honestly, not mechanically. And the results were astonishing. Most learners study with a cold mind, memorizing, memorizing, memorizing. Daniel learned with a warm mind, feeling, connecting, expressing. This difference changed everything. Let's break down why emotion is so powerful for English learners like you. When you learn with emotion, your brain releases chemicals, dopamine and norepinephrine, that strengthen memory. These chemicals act like superglue for information. When you feel strongly, your brain says, "This is important, keep this." And it stores the information longer, deeper, more permanently. Think about the last time you felt emotional. Maybe a movie made you cry. Maybe a song reminded you of someone. Maybe a moment of fear made your heart race. You still remember it, right? Because emotion made your brain pay attention. Now imagine learning English this way. Imagine every new word being connected to a feeling. Imagine every sentence being connected to a real moment. Imagine every listening practice being connected to a story that moved you. This is how English becomes unforgettable. Daniel began experimenting with emotional triggers in his practice. Here's what he used, and what you can use too. 1. Emotional storytelling. He chose stories about real human experiences: pain, love, courage, loss, growth. The stronger the emotion, the stronger the memory. 2. Emotional repetition. He didn't repeat sentences mechanically. He repeated them like an actor, changing speed, tone, volume, feeling. For example, instead of repeating, "I will not give up" flatly, he repeated it with emotion, slowly, loudly, confidently. 3. Emotional reflection. Every evening, Daniel wrote one emotional sentence in English. I felt proud today. I felt lost today. I felt scared today. I felt hopeful today. These were not perfect sentences. They were meaningful sentences, and that made them powerful. 4. Emotional connection. He took English sentences and connected them to his own experiences. If he heard a sentence like, "She was afraid to try," he immediately thought of a moment when he felt the same. This made the sentence unforgettable. 5. Emotional listening. He stopped listening to boring lessons. He listened to speeches, interviews, stories, and messages that moved him. The more emotional the content, the more his brain absorbed. Emotion turned every practice session into a transformation session. One day, something incredible happened. Daniel was listening to an English clip about resilience. In the middle of the clip, a sentence hit him so deeply that he had to pause the audio. The sentence was, "Rock bottom is not the end, it is the beginning." He repeated it slowly. He repeated it again. He repeated it a third time. He felt tears fill his eyes. Rock bottom was familiar to him. He had lived there. He had felt it. He had survived it. And hearing it in English gave him a powerful connection, not only to the language, but to himself. That was the moment Daniel finally understood. English is not just about language. English is about identity. English is about emotion. English is about feeling alive. The deeper you connect emotionally, the faster you grow linguistically. At this stage of his journey, Daniel's English began to change in ways he didn't expect. His speaking became more expressive. His sentences carried emotion, not just structure. His vocabulary choices improved naturally. His memory sharpened. He no longer sounded like a learner. He sounded like someone who lived in English, because emotionally he did. This is the transformation waiting for you too. If you learn English with emotion, you will never struggle with memory again. You will never feel stuck. You will never feel slow. You will feel connected. You will feel alive. And you will remember effortlessly. In the next segment, we go to the next level: how emotional English helps you build true confidence. The kind that stays with you everywhere, in conversations, in work, in interviews, and in life. Your English journey is becoming more powerful than you think. Confidence is not something you suddenly wake up with. Confidence is something you grow little by little from the inside out. It is a quiet strength, a steady belief, a calm voice inside your mind that says, "I can do this," And in Daniel's journey, this moment came when emotion and English finally merged, when the language stopped being a subject and started becoming a source of personal power. It began during a difficult week. Daniel was overwhelmed with work. His responsibilities increased. His energy decreased. He felt stressed, irritated, exhausted. The world felt heavy, and English felt like one more burden. But something unexpected happened. Instead of breaking, something inside him strengthened. He found himself using English mentally when thinking about his problems. Not because he was practicing, not because he was forcing it, but because English had become a voice he trusted. It surprised him, it encouraged him, it changed him. This was the first sign of emotional confidence, the confidence that grows not from speaking perfectly, but from connecting deeply. Let's go inside this transformation. One night, Daniel listened to a message in English about resilience. The speaker said something simple but powerful. You become confident the moment you stop running from who you are. Daniel paused the audio. He repeated the sentence slowly. He closed his eyes. Something inside him shifted. He realized he had been running, not from English, not from learning, but from himself, from his fear, his doubt, his insecurity. And every time he avoided speaking English, he wasn't avoiding grammar. He was avoiding judgment. Every time he stayed silent, he wasn't protecting himself, he was limiting himself. That night, Daniel decided to stop running. The next day, he entered a meeting at work. English was required. Normally, he would speak softly, avoid eye contact, and hope nobody asked him a question. But this time felt different. His chest still felt tight. His hands still felt cold. His mind still felt nervous. But beneath the fear, he felt something stronger, a voice saying, "You can do this." Confidence does not replace fear. Confidence stands next to fear and moves anyway. When his manager asked him a question, he didn't freeze. He didn't panic. He didn't translate. He paused. He breathed. He spoke. Were his sentences perfect? No. Did he make mistakes? Yes. Did he communicate clearly? Absolutely. And for the first time, he felt proud. Not proud of his English, proud of his courage. That was the moment his relationship with English changed completely. He realized the truth every learner needs to understand. Confidence grows from action, not perfection. From this day on, Daniel began practicing confidence intentionally. Not just English, confidence. Because he understood that confidence is a skill, and like all skills, it can be trained. Here are the 3 parts of confidence Daniel built. 1. Inner confidence. 2. Voice confidence. 3. Situational confidence. Let's go inside each one. 1. Inner confidence. The confidence you feel alone. Inner confidence is the quiet belief that says, I am capable. It begins inside your thoughts, your mindset, your self-talk. Daniel built inner confidence through his daily emotional practice. Every time he wrote about his feelings in English, he understood himself better. Every time he repeated a powerful sentence, he empowered his mind. Every time he connected a story to his life, he grew emotionally. Inner confidence allowed him to face English without fear. It told him, mistakes are part of learning. It told him, progress matters more than perfection. It told him, you are growing every day. Inner confidence is the foundation. Without it, nothing else stands. 2. Voice confidence. The confidence you feel. When speaking, voice confidence comes from repetition, from hearing your own voice, from practicing out loud. At first, Daniel hated the sound of his English. He felt shy. He felt weak. He felt embarrassed. But as he repeated stories, sentences, and emotional lines, something changed. His voice became familiar, his tone became stronger, his pronunciation improved naturally. This is a secret many learners never discover. The more you hear your own voice, the less afraid you become of using it. Voice confidence is built through repeating emotional sentences, shadowing videos, reading paragraphs aloud, summarizing stories, speaking in the mirror, talking to yourself in English. This practice strengthened Daniel's speaking muscles, not just physically, but mentally. He started trusting his own sound. 3. Situational confidence. The confidence you feel in real life. This is the highest level of confidence and the hardest. Situational confidence means feeling capable in real conversations, real meetings, real job interviews, real environments. It does not grow from studying textbooks. It grows from experiencing pressure and surviving it. Daniel built situational confidence slowly. By answering small questions at work, by speaking to strangers for a few seconds, by expressing his opinion in small meetings, by asking for help when needed, by practicing even when nervous. He realized a deep truth. Confidence appears when you show up, not when you feel ready. Situational confidence is not the absence of fear, it is the acceptance of fear. And once Daniel accepted that fear was normal, his courage grew stronger. The turning point. The moment his confidence became real, it happened unexpectedly. Daniel was attending a training session at work. Employees from multiple departments were present. The instructor asked everyone to share an experience. Daniel felt his heart race. His hands became cold. His breath tightened. Old fear returned, but something inside him refused to stay silent. He lifted his hand. He shared his story. He spoke clearly, naturally, confidently. For the first time in his life, English didn't feel foreign. It felt like his own voice, his own identity, his own strength. When he finished speaking, the room was silent, not because he made a mistake, but because everyone was listening. That was the moment Daniel knew. He wasn't learning English anymore. He was becoming someone new, a stronger version of himself, a braver version of himself, a more confident version of himself. This is what emotional English does. It does not just improve vocabulary, it does not just build memory, it changes identity. And when your identity changes, your entire life changes. Your confidence journey begins here. If you want to transform your English like Daniel, remember this. Confidence is built inside your mind. Confidence is built through your voice. Confidence is built in real situations. 3 levels, 1 journey, your journey. As we move into the final segment, you will discover how to turn everything you've learned, memory, emotion, stories, rhythm, inner voice, into a lifelong system that will keep your English growing forever. Your transformation is not temporary. Your confidence is not temporary. Your new identity is not temporary. You are becoming someone stronger than you ever imagined. Segment 7. The system that changes your English, your mind, and your life forever. There comes a moment in every journey when you look back and realize that you are no longer the same person who began. Your thoughts are different. Your confidence is different. Your English is different. Your entire mind feels different. This final segment is about that moment, about understanding what has changed, why it changed, and how you can protect this growth for the rest of your life. Daniel reached this moment slowly, quietly, without even noticing. Months had passed since he started his simple daily routine. Months of stories, emotions, repetitions, inner voice training, thinking in English, speaking aloud, building confidence. He had not measured his progress every day, but progress was happening every day. And then one morning, something extraordinary happened. Daniel woke up, walked to his kitchen, poured himself a cup of coffee, and suddenly realized that he was thinking completely in English, smoothly, comfortably, naturally, not forcing, not translating, not stopping, just thinking. It felt effortless, like breathing. And that was when he understood the biggest truth of all. Fluency does not begin with speaking. Fluency begins with thinking. Fluency begins with identity. Fluency begins inside you. In that quiet morning, Daniel understood something deeper. He had not only learned English, he had rebuilt himself. This is the final transformation, the moment when everything comes together. The memory practice, the emotional connection, the storytelling, the daily rhythm, the inner voice, the confidence, it all forms one system. A system that will guide you not for days, not for weeks, but for life. Let's build this system together exactly as Daniel did. 1. The daily foundation, diusdia, your minimum dose. A strong English life begins with small, non-negotiable actions. These are the actions you do even when you're busy, tired, stressed, or unmotivated. Daniel called this the minimum dose. Your brain needs consistency more than intensity. Your minimum dose might look like one sentence in the morning, one short listening clip, one repetition, one thought expressed in English, one review at night. It may feel small, but small actions done daily become powerful over time. This is how Daniel built his foundation and how you will build yours. 2. The weekly growth cycle. Your progress. Engine. Weekly cycles give structure to your learning. They allow you to grow steadily without feeling overwhelmed. Each week, Daniel chose one story to learn deeply, one new vocabulary theme, one short speaking challenge, one emotional message to repeat, one mini project like a summary or journal. By focusing on themes instead of random activities, Daniel grew quickly and naturally. Your brain learns better when it sees patterns. A weekly cycle creates those patterns. 3. The emotional core. Your memory powerhouse. The strongest memories are emotional memories. That is why you remember heartbreaks, victories, failures, and joyful moments more than any textbook chapter. In English learning, you must use this truth. Choose content that moves you. Repeat sentences that empower you. Speak with emotion, not fear. Write your real thoughts, not cold grammar exercises. When emotion enters your learning, everything changes. Your brain remembers faster. Your mind responds naturally. Your confidence grows automatically. Emotion is not optional. Emotion is essential for the inner voice. Loop, your automatic English builder. Inside your mind lives a voice that speaks constantly, from morning until night. This voice is your inner language. When that voice begins speaking in English, everything becomes easier. This is the foundation of automatic fluency. Daniel trained his inner voice by translating his thoughts gently, without pressure. At first, only small thoughts appeared in English. Over time, longer thoughts came naturally. Eventually, his entire thinking loop shifted. You can train this voice too. Describe your actions, express your feelings, reflect on your day, ask yourself questions in English. The more you activate this loop, the stronger your fluency becomes. 5. The real life activation. your confidence builder. Real fluency does not grow in isolation. It grows in real moments when you use English with people in conversations, in meetings, in messages, in challenges. Daniel did not wait for perfection. He spoke with mistakes. He spoke with fear. He spoke with uncertainty. He spoke anyway. Real life broke his fear. Real life built his confidence. Real life made his English solid. This is a step every learner must take. Fluency is not built in your room. Fluency is built in your world. 6. The long-term identity, your permanent transformation. The final part of the system is also the deepest, identity. You're no longer someone learning English. You are someone who uses English. You're no longer a beginner or intermediate. You are a communicator, a thinker, a speaker. When your identity changes, your habits change. When your habits change, your life changes. This is what Daniel realized, and what you must realize too. You are not just learning English. You're becoming someone new, someone stronger, someone confident, someone capable, someone who rises. This identity is your greatest tool. The final message. This is your beginning. Daniel looked at his life months later and hardly recognized himself. He spoke confidently. He understood naturally. He thought clearly. He felt powerful. He changed, not because of a miracle, but because of a method made of emotion, action, rhythm, storytelling, and identity. Now you are standing at the same place. You have learned the system. You have seen the journey. You have walked through every stage. But the most important part is still ahead. Your life will not change because you watched this. Your life will change because you act on this. And when you do, your English, your mind, your confidence, and your future will transform in ways you cannot imagine. Remember this always. Small steps create big change. Emotion creates memory. Action creates confidence. Identity creates transformation. You are not done. You are beginning. And if this journey helped you, inspired you, or pushed you forward, please like the video, comment to share your experience, and subscribe so we can continue growing together. Your story starts now. If this video helped you, if it opened your mind or gave you strength today, then don't leave without subscribing. Your growth matters, and I'm here to guide you step by step. So hit the subscribe button, join this family, and let's continue this journey together.